You guys are gonna be pissed. How about an actual intro? It's officially Ogilvy Maurice's 35th birthday, and first of all, let's give him a hand. Come on, 35 years, let's go.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Anyways, over the years there's been tons of entries in the series, some good and some released in 2006. Now I could be like any other Sonic commentary jackass and talk about the history of Sonic. Did you know that Sonic was made to compete with Mario? Did you know that you can stack Sonic 3 Knuckles with a lock Sonic 06's development team was built after all storybook games? But that'd be boring, and you'd probably want to shoot yourself after 2 minutes. So instead I'll be talking about another topic that's probably already been run into the ground, overrated Sonic games. There have been a lot of these over the past 3 decades, and what you'll come to notice is that most of these games have been released over the past 20 years. The difference between my takes and everyone else's though is that I'm actually not biased, and I can actually properly critique games even if I like them. This isn't an attack on anyone, by the way, just saying it now. But like always, if you've seen my videos, you know what comes next. Let's get to the herring, surprise, and potato.
What's the surprise?
Starting off, insane, we've got what most considered to be the gold standard for 2D Sonic games, Sonic 2. However, I'm not like most, and this game honestly gets way too much praise for what it is. Now, I get it. On your first playthrough, this game seems great. The music, graphics, and gameplay all seem like a step up from the original, especially with how fast-paced the zones are. However, while this fast pace might seem better suited for Sonic, it's actually the problem. Sonic games shouldn't be judged from the first playthrough. Sonic isn't like other platformers, his games are meant to be replayed, I'm sure you've all have heard this at least once. So, when you actually go back to Sonic 2 and play it like a Sonic game, you'll notice that something is missing. A lack of, or really just a large absence of platforming. Now, it's still here. Technically. The way it works in this game is you'll have a small, easy challenge that I guess counts as platforming, followed by 5 to 10 seconds of spectacle and set pieces that let you take your hand off the controller and shut your brain off. This is usually followed by another small platforming section, then more cool spectacle, and then the process repeats like 2 more times before the level ends. Do you see the problem now? Because of this gameplay loop that prioritizes cool, flashy moments over hard and engaging platforming, the game is much easier and far less replayable than games like CD, Superstars, and even Sonic 1. Also, Metropolis Zone sucks. I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, I said it was good like 2 months ago. I was stupid and trying to be different. The last time I talked about this part of the game, I said I was fine with the zone having 3 acts because it was the only zone in the game to be structured this way. But now that I'm looking back on it, why would they do that? This honestly does nothing but break the pace of the rest of the game up until that point, and I honestly would rather it being only 2 acts. It doesn't help that this zone just so happens to have some of the most annoying and worst enemy placement in the entire series. If it's this bad playing on widescreen, just imagine half of your view being sliced off in the 90s. Oh yeah, this game has a 2-minute autoscroller too, so, you know, that doesn't really do much in its favor. While I don't think Sonic 2 is bad by any means, no, it's got a lot to like. I think the vast majority of opinions on this game come from people who have only played it once. Don't believe me? Boot it up and play Chemical Plant, you'll see what I mean. Quick pause, I'm sure you all know it's coming, so, like, you know, subscribe and hype the video to support me. Anyways, back to the video. The most important thing to happen in 2001 was the release of the most overhyped Sonic game to date, Sonic Adventure 2. Seriously, by the way people describe this thing, you would have thought it was the second coming of Christ or something, when in reality, it's alright, I guess. When people praise this game, they usually only talk about the speed stages and very conveniently forget to mention the other 2/3 of the entire experience. That is mandatory to beat the main campaign and unlock all those speed stages, mind you. It's honestly funny, considering even the speed stages have their own slew of issues. For one, I feel like as if there isn't much room for player expression here. What I mean by this is that if you want a good rank in this game, obtaining this means going along a set path that will have you homing attacking and ring dashing the most. Like in Metal Harbor, for example. The only way to A rank this stage is to homing attack all these enemies, grab all the ring dashes, and grab onto the top part of the rocket. Now, this isn't terrible, as it does provide some challenge. However, the problem is that there's no way to skip any of this. The gaps in terrain are too large to simply spin dash jump over like you could in Adventure 1. This puts a certain restraint on the player, limiting their potential creativity. The only stage that doesn't abide by these principles is Final Rush, and because of that, this is easily the most enjoyable and replayable stage SA2 has to offer. So while I don't think these are bad by any means, most of them definitely hinder the small amount of player expression that the first game had even more. But of course, we've been neglecting the other 2 gameplay styles, almost as much as Low Tier God neglects his daughter. Let's start with the treasure hunting, which is... honestly, I can't even decide if this is an improvement or not. Yes, it is a step up in challenge from Adventure 1, partly because Sonic Team placed the Emerald Shards in tougher to spot places, but almost entirely because the radar got nerfed to the center of the Earth. I'm honestly really on the fence about this decision, and at this point the fence is leaning toward the annoying side. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna memorize 60 whole shard locations to make those things more enjoyable. It's just not gonna happen. Then there's the mech stages, and like, what do you want me to say? If you like these, no you don't, please stop trying to be different. All these things lead to a game that's only 1/3 good. But even then, that 1/3 has issues. The story is good, sure, the art style is unique, we all know that, but when it comes to gameplay, I really struggle to see how people can come back to this game. Just a quick honorable mention, and I don't even know why I have to bring this game up, Sonic 06. Now, this game might seem far from overrated by the amount of backlash it still continues to get almost 20 years after its release. However, I've been seeing a lot of love for this game recently, and like, we all know why. Project 06 gave us two things. One of the best 3D Sonic games, but two, a bunch of big-mouthed, small-brained dumbasses with rose-tinted glasses who can somehow look at that 20-year-old game with a subpar plot and buggy messes that somehow count as levels, and tell you with a face straighter than a homophobic that it's good. Oh my god, that was a long sentence. But anyways, 06 is in no way a good game. Please stop saying that. I'm so tired of it. Anyways, let's jump forward only 2 years later to 2008. Sonic Unleashed gave us the best opening cinematic in the series. What it also gave us was the most glazed Sonic game of the past 6 years. Believe me, I get it. I was once an Unleashed lizard too. Hell, I nearly pissed myself at 8 years old just watching that opening on my dusty iPad. Unleashed is still and probably will always be my favorite Sonic game. Yet, despite all this, I can't just sit here and act like Unleashed doesn't have its many flaws. First of all, we gotta address the furry in the room. The werehog, while definitely being an acquired taste, still heavily breaks the pace that the daytime stages had. Is the combat good? Yeah, it's the best attempt at a combat system thus far. Is the platforming honestly really fun at points? Also yeah, especially that little clock tower section in Rooftop Run. But I'm sorry, no amount of creative platforming or player expression can fix the fact that these almost 20-minute stages take up more than half the game's runtime. Another 20% of your average playthrough is also going to be spent tediously collecting medals after you realize you need 40 more to play Jungle Joyride. I think that the medals would have been fine if they acted like red rings, basically a collectible of sorts if you want to go for a full completion. But these aren't optional. You have to collect them in order to beat the game, and because they're mandatory, finding them feels less like peaceful exploration and more like chores, which is a shame considering Unleashed has some of the most beautiful areas in the series. Also, if we're talking about this game on its original hardware, which I think would be kinda silly at this point considering the most common thing to play it on now is a PC, yeah, this thing ran like garbage, no doubt about that. I mean, to say it ran at 30 FPS half the time would be a stretch. This thing was running 20 best most of the time. There really is no excusing this. Like, did you not test your own game? Like, I find it kinda hard to believe that during the 2 years of development, not once did anyone point out, "Hey man, this thing runs about as well as an asthmatic grandpa. Don't you think we could scale it down a bit?" Again, I love Unleashed, probably more than my PS5, but like, we need to stop acting as if this game's runtime isn't polluted with button mashing and scavenger hunting. I guess Knuckles never really left after all. This next one's gonna be really controversial, but like, I don't even care anymore. Frontiers! I've had my opinion on this game pretty set in stone for a good couple of months now, and I'm honestly tired of people acting like this game is anything more than a glorified tech demo for the Hedgehog Engine 2. And everyone, please, put your pitchforks down, I'm still a Sonic fan. Just because you're not a Sonic fan doesn't mean you can hate on I am a Sonic fan! God damn it, I'm just stuck playing the same games because someone won't get back on their fat ass and play the rest of them! Now, when it was released, I understand that the Sonic community was in a far different place compared to today. I mean, I wouldn't know firsthand, I was too busy crying over my blue screen Nintendo Switch at the time. With a very high possibility of Sonic as a whole ceasing game production, it was reasonable to kind of hype up and spread awareness for potentially the last mainline entry. But Sonic isn't in that place anymore, almost 4 years and 3 games later, so I think anybody is perfectly in the clear to fairly critique this game, myself included. That being said, this game... I'm just gonna say, this game kinda sucks. Now, my main issues with Frontiers stem from the execution of its main two gameplay formats, that of course being the Starfall Islands and cyberspace, which like, you really don't want to have your two main selling points be unpolished. Now, don't get me wrong, these ideas sound great, and they had tons of potential to come out into one of the best Sonic games ever. However, that's not what happened. Despite this game's 7-year development time, both these things ended up feeling rushed, or at the very least, underbaked. The open world could have been so much more than what it ended up being. Just imagine a massive island with an almost abstract environment with platforming challenges that are not only blended with the terrain, but also fully utilize Sonic's moveset and physics capabilities. But again, that's not what happened. What we got instead were 5, really 3 islands with generic themes, with the sole exception of Chaos Island, and platforming challenges that stick out like a sore thumb and hardly utilize anything else in Sonic's moveset besides the homing attack. I mean, sure, sometimes you slope jump, but for one, this isn't slope jumping, it's just boosting off a sharp point. And 2, I can count on one hand the amount of times it's used in the main game. So, this means that most of your time in the islands is spent holding the boost, which at this point is a speed jog at most, and mashing the X button. This isn't fun. Especially when you take into consideration that this is basically the only way to pass time in the open world after beating the story. Oh yeah, there's the combat too. But I've got a whole video coming up that's all about that, so I'm not even gonna try to get into that can of feces right now. The other thing you can do is cyberspace, and like, yeah, it exists. I guess. I don't know, I feel like if you have a PC, there's really no point in all coming back to it. Considering more than half of these levels are ripped straight from other games, why would anyone who can get Unleashed for free want to drop $60 on a game with objectively worse physics and theming? Why would I want to replay Cyberspace 1-1 when I could just as easily boot up Unleashed and play Windmill Isle Act 1 and go smoother and faster than I ever could have in Frontiers? Why would I waste my time playing Cyberspace 1.5 and 3.7 when I could, again, just as easily boot up gens and play the entirety of Chemical Plant in one act? I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me why they would do this other than being lazy. Most of the games they pulled the layouts from are already available on most modern consoles, so it's not like they're doing anyone a favor by mashing them all into one soulless package. Both of these things are why I hardly find myself coming back to Frontiers, because if I can play a game with more polish and soul with better gameplay and physics, why would I waste my time playing a game whose main 2 gameplay styles are underbaked? I want to enjoy Frontiers, I really do, but I just can't find myself preferring it over any of the other Sonic games that I could be playing. Hopefully Frontiers 2 comes along and fixes everything the original did wrong, because to be honest, if it did, we could have the best Sonic game in our hands by next year. Anyways, this has been the longest section by far, so let's jump ahead 2 games and take a look at... I promise I'm a Sonic fan.
I am a Sonic fan!
No, don't get me wrong. I used to love this game. Hell, I spent $70 on it. I kinda had no choice but to love it. At one point, I even thought it was better than OG Gens. Call me crazy, I know. The point is, this game has a fantastic first impression. One of, if not the best in the series. Especially with the mid-level cutscenes and expressive animations, this is easily the most cinematic Sonic game to date. So, why don't I like it anymore? Why do I have 5 hours with Shadow Gens, but 40 with the original? Well, it's simple. Shadow Gens isn't replayable, or at least it's not nearly as fun to replay as Sonic Gens is. Let me explain. The main problem comes from the physics of this game. If you played Frontiers before Shadow Gens, you'll know that the air drag by default slows Sonic almost completely to a stop whenever you jump. Now, this would be annoying, but thankfully after some updates, you can toggle how much or how little air drag you want in the settings. Shadow Generations has the same exact problem, but there's no setting for it. You can't change your air drag this time around, and because of this, it feels awful whenever you jump. Pair this with a boost that feels equally as bad to use, and you've got yourself the worst feeling boost game by far. Now, you might bring up the topic of spear gliding. This is an exploit to give Shadow no air drag by spamming the Chaos Spear in the air. However, while this is fun, it is what I said it is, an exploit. This was not put into the game intentionally. So, although we have it, and we can use it to aid with player expression and levels, just think about what would happen if this glitch didn't exist. If we didn't have spear gliding, this would leave Shadow Gens almost to the state of Sonic Adventure 2 speed stages, where there's no room for creativity or skips. I'm not saying spear gliding is bad, in fact I'm saying the exact opposite. Spear gliding is the only way this game has any speedrunning potential at all, and without it, this would easily be the most boring Sonic game by far. This goes hand in hand with the sometimes bland level design. Now don't get me wrong, these stage layouts are no Sonic Forces, except for the Doom Zones, but I'll get there. But it's still very basic most of the time. There are alternate pathways, sure, but most of them are either totally unnecessary or are insanely easy to maintain, with a few exceptions. This game also has a similar problem to Forces, where it uses unnecessary homing chains to pad out level design. However, I think it actually got worse in Shadow Gens. Although I do like what Radical Highway did to spice up these repetitive inputs a little bit, most of the chains are the exact same, with no danger or risk of attacking wrong. I think a great fix for this level design problem is simply to use the Doom powers more. With how little these things showed up outside of their own levels, they end up feeling more like gimmicks than they do abilities. Seriously, add more Doom morph sections, maybe some more surfing. I'd even take the Doom Blast if it replaced a pointless alternate path or homing chain. Honestly, I just want to swing like Spider-Man in a Sonic game more. This is one of the reasons why I'm so excited for Shindash's new level pack. because he's actually incorporating the Doom powers into sections of a level that could have easily been padded out with mind-numbing gameplay. Speaking of boring, let's talk about the Doom zones, because these are easily the worst part of the game to come back to. Halfway through a handful of stages, the game decides to take a 2-minute break before the level ends. What this means is that 1 second you're playing Shadow Generations, and the next you're playing Sonic Forces. I'd honestly argue to say that these are worse than Forces, because at least that game had decent physics. But here, there's basically no way around these long corridors of uninteresting, slow boosting. It's really a shame too, because stages like Sunset Heights honestly had so much potential, yet they were cut off with 2 minutes of straight boosting and homing attack chains right as they were starting to get good. Sunset Heights could have been better than the original this time around, but instead we got a true Sonic Forces stage smacked right in the middle of it. The last big problem is the mid-level cutscenes that plague most of these stages. Now, the first time you play this game, these aren't that bad. You know, there's some nice spectacle in the middle of a stage that don't really bother you all that much. And then you go back to the stages, and they play again. You really start to notice how long they are when you're trying to optimize a run, because these things are like 10 to 15 seconds. It doesn't sound like much until you're on your 10th replay of Space Colony Arc and Black Doom is still on some... And suddenly, one of the coolest parts about your first playthrough is now just an annoyance. If there was an option to skip these, I wouldn't be ranting like this, but... you know. You never truly know how much you missed Frontier's customization until you play this game. So anyways, the moral of this entire video is that Shadow Gens is not better than the OG at all, and you should go glaze the original generations instead. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up this video. If you stayed this long, hope you've enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to support me, maybe even hype this video, and I'll see you all next week.